recording. Hi, I'm Janie.
And I'm Dan.
And we're Achieve the Lifestyle. We both work full-time jobs, so we kind of have to multitask to put this up this week. So,
the goal here is we're doing our Sunday usual, which is kind of cook what we're going to be eating for the majority of the week for lunch. So the hardest meal to consider usually week to week is lunch when you work outside of the house, because you can't just stop and make something, and this is where people end up just eating some crazy ass shit. So we make sure that we make the right choice easier by cooking and having plenty of food accessible to take to lunch.
yeah. And this isn't demonizing, if you have, like, your only option is to get Chipotle on a lunch or something like that. Fine, but this is just, prepare, trying to plan ahead and prepare so that way you're not always having to eat out, because you have less control over your nutrition when you eat out more consistently.
Correct.
So,
it's one of those things where if you're really gonna be, we're talking about optimizing health here. We're not talking about, oh, this is better than nothing. We're trying to get you to that point where you really have control of what goes into your body, and that's how you become optimal in a state of health. Like, that's what we're all shooting for. So you have to consider what you're eating the vast majority of the time. So it comes to a point, like, we want to work towards a point where we're cooking the majority of our meals, really. We can't necessarily trust what the restaurants are doing.
yeah. And I heard an interesting tidbit on a podcast I was listening to about, a lot of the restaurants out there do have nutritional information. So, like I mentioned Chipotle earlier, so if you look at Chipotle and you can see, like, oh, well, their burrito bowl has this much protein, this much carbs, this much fat, but you also have to understand that that's heavily dependent upon the person serving up your bowl, where somebody may have a different idea of what a scoop is than the previous person, so there's no consistency there. And consistency is key for long-term health habits, which today we want to talk a lot about the habits you develop, and in order and by developing healthy habits, you're taking ownership of your health, which I think is lacking a lot with people in this current healthcare model that we're in.
I think we first gotta allude to the mindset, and that's something, cooking a lot of meat here. The mindset of you own your health. Like, nobody's gonna give a fuck about your health as much as you. Not your doctor, not your sister, not your brother, not your mother. Nobody's gonna give a fuck about your health as much as you. So the idea is to get you to, like, take responsibility for it. You have power and you have say in your health outcomes. Mm-hmm. Way more power than they would have you believe. So we want to start there, like accepting that, hey, whatever happens to me health-wise, barring some crazy congenital condition that unforeseen, whatever, but for the most part, I have a say in what happens to my health.
Yes. And so a lot of people find that creating healthy habits is hard, and it can be, but that you sort of need that discipline and understand that this is what's good for you and best for you. And then I know that there's studies out there that show how long you need to have a habit before it becomes second nature to you. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but these things are what's going to help you maintain and achieve your optimal health in the long term. Now, it's not just all about nutrition and exercise or activity that we've talked about, but if you notice that, we're in here together, meal prepping together, that's us spending some quality time together. If we weren't recording this, we'd be giving each other loads of shit right now, laughing, talking smack, or using this opportunity to listen to some educational podcasts so that we can continue to develop our views on how to best help people with their health. So I guess one of the biggest things that I know we've said it a lot already, and I've mentioned it in the post that I put up last week, is owning your health, making the choices. So you can choose to set aside time on a Sunday. It can be a Monday, it can be a Friday, whenever, to meal prep, to plan things out. So some tips that we can provide for you for that is, cooking up the bulk of the protein, right? So that is one of the most time-consuming things. So using this time to cook that up, and cooking up the bulk of some other things that you can reheat. So like, I have a shit ton of potatoes, we have a shit ton of rice in the fridge, I cut up a bunch of fruit. All the time-consuming things, you can knock it out quickly if you set aside time for it. Therefore, you can get more of that time back during the day, so you can enjoy your lunch break. You don't have to take time to prepare your food or go get your food. You can enjoy your evenings with your significant others if that food is already mostly prepared and you just need to reheat it. So you get time back from this. Sacrificing a little bit of time up front, gaining that time back during the week.
I think also like realizing that you gotta pay yourself first. So this is like, the idea here is to foresee the obstacles. So like what I tell people that I work with is usually like, okay, you need a day in the week. And for most of us, if we work Monday through Friday, it's gonna be Sunday, where you can sit out and kind of lay out your week and predict the things. Hey, I have this meeting, this day's gonna be a little bit longer, this day's gonna go like this, yada, yada, yada. You know, there's always things that are gonna pop up, but you can kind of lay out your week in some way, shape, or form, and then start identifying the obstacles. Be like, oh, right here, I got this meeting to this, right here, that's gonna be a pain in the ass to get lunch. I better make sure that I have something to eat there, or that I account for that. Or I'm gonna plug in my workout in the morning this day because I don't know when I'm gonna get off work, etc., etc., etc. So that, I'd say that's the first step, is to prepare mentally and kind of plan your week out. And then from there you can start putting a menu together and all this other stuff. Choose simple. That's always gonna be my recommendation, that you pick simpler things to cook, so that you're not driving yourself nuts putting a recipe together that takes forever to make, because you're not going to stick with it. Simplicity will always be your friend long term.
Right. And it's like I've hit on numerous times, it's what we do in our day-to-day that can influence our health overall. And so I've talked about sleep, nutrition, movement, relationships with other people, your stress management, your fluid intake, things like that. So this is one of the things, by developing these habits on things you do day to day and preparing to be able to carry out these habits daily, by meal prepping so you can eat food that you bring yourself day to day, is what's going to help your health later on. It's also going to decrease your stress. Now you don't have to worry about what you're going to eat. If you skip a meal, that's stressful on the body. All these things. So it's just really important that you take ownership of your health. You do things day to day to help your health. Those things become habits for you, so that it's second nature, and it just goes with the flow. Now, if you feel you're struggling for time, like, oh, I cannot take 2 hours to meal prep on a Sunday, I would really encourage you to examine how much time are you on your phone? How much time are you on Netflix? Do you have time to do these other things that aren't providing you with benefits as much as this would later on, but are more instant gratification things, and could return you to investing in your health more than just getting things that make you feel good in the moment?
You know what, with that, you remember how we used to do it back in New York? Like, I'd say, so what I've gotten really good over the years is at piecemealing it, so micro-dosing the preparation. So a lot of people think like, oh, I got a meal prep. I'm going to go to the grocery store, let's say on a Sunday, and then I'm going to come home and cook all this stuff. Next thing you know, you don't have a Sunday. You're at the grocery store fighting the mobs that are at the grocery stores on Sundays, and then you come home and it takes all this time to cook. Whereas usually we got into this thing where we started grocery shopping on a Friday night, which, by the way, pro tip, is the best day to shop for groceries, because the shelves are stocked because they're preparing for the weekend and there's nobody there.
Yeah. It's
perfect. So shop groceries on Friday. If I gotta cut something up, like prep something, we used to eat a lot of chicken thighs. and those need, you gotta trim them and all this other stuff. So I would do that on Saturday, marinade, whatever, do that on Saturday, and then Sunday I cook them. So it's a micro dose thing where I'm just doing a little bit of it and not spending my whole day doing it.
Right.
And the thing is, like, listen, for some people that might not work.
Yeah.
For us, it works. So it's one of those things where you gotta commit to the trial and error of it, of
Exactly.
seeing what actually is gonna work. After all, this is the Achieve the Lifestyle channel. So the goal here is to empower you so that you get to the point where this is a lifestyle for you. Therefore, it's second nature.
Yeah.
Because if we don't get there, we're really not gonna. The results you're going to get are not going to be the best.
Yeah, and I usually tell my patients to make small changes and build on them. So maybe you're like, oh, I can't fucking handle all that, you're saying to do this too much. Cool, start with lunches. Or maybe you start with your breakfast. Or maybe you start with your dinner. And then as that becomes second nature, you add things on. The other thing, too, is what works for us, Dan said this, isn't necessarily going to work for everybody. And we totally get that. The internet's a beautiful place. And so I tell people to, Google how to meal prep for for a family of 4. I don't know. So whatever. And there's our resources out there. There's other people blogging about this. You can see if other people's methods fit with yours. I use this a lot with my truck drivers because truck drivers are notorious for eating out all the time because they have no other option. So I tell them Google easy meal prep for truck drivers. There's resources out there. And so it's just making the decision to own your health, try to find these resources, doing the trial and error, and then instilling healthy habits for you.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point because it's like the ownership of it part, and I have to apologize that we have our backs to you. Hopefully this audio kicks out. So the ownership part of it, if you don't get to that point where you feel like, hey, this is my health and I have a say in how this is gonna go, then like you'll never really do stuff in your favor. Like it's one of those things. There's a lot out there going on right now where people are being disempowered to have a positive effect on their lives. They're basically getting to this point where it's like, well, I guess I can't do anything about it, so I'm just gonna carry on eating Mickey D's every freaking day. Like, come on now, seriously. So let's get to that point where you're, hey, this is my health, and my outcomes are my responsibility, and I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that I have positive outcomes. So once you do that, then you can commit to a process of trial and error. No, shopping and cooking on Sunday doesn't work for me, or yes, it works for me. I know people that like to do that very much. I'd rather be locked in on Sunday and just do that all day. That's fine. Whatever gets it done. That's where we have to get you to. Okay?
Yep.
That's a lot of meat there.
And so, we just really want to encourage you to own your health and, again, make your choices day to day that are going to influence your best you, right? And so if you have any questions regarding that, any feedback, what works for you, drop it in the comments. Other people can learn from you. Maybe what we do doesn't work, but maybe what you do works. If you have any challenges to this, let us know. We need to be educated on barriers, so maybe we can help you find other ways. And then, make sure you follow us, subscribe. We're on Instagram at Achieve the Lifestyle. We're on YouTube at Achieve the Lifestyle.
Yep.
It's Dan Brown. I'm Janie Brown Wilkinson. Haven't decided yet.
Oh my God, I can't believe. Whatever. Whatever.
And this is Rolo.
Listen, what I'll leave you with is just identify obstacles first, and then plan accordingly, so that you're not like, oh my God, I didn't know I was gonna have that meeting and miss lunch. Like, get with it, okay? Identify obstacles, plan around it.